Yo, what's the deal? It's your boy, Sunday. I'm here at work, going on my patrols as usual, and I figured I'll drop another video for y'all. But this one will be about writing techniques versus like reviewing something or whatever. I'm a little tired, can't hold you. I did a 12-hour shift yesterday in the morning, and I still have to go to my evening job, so I am burnt out, and I still have to be up at 5 to get to work on time today. I didn't get home till like 2 a.m. So I'm very tired. Going off for 3 hours of sleep, going off of fumes. My tank is on E, both figuratively and literally. So it is what it is, Make my best, man. If you got kids and bills to pay, man, you gotta do what you gotta do. Sure, I gotta do what I gotta do, you feel me? But welcome back to the channel. This your boy. If it's your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, also welcome. I've been writing professionally, you can say, since about 2015 when I dropped Tales from the Other Side 1. And now, I have like 20 books out. Most of them are short stories. Working on the Blackguard Saga right now, my magnum opus, as they say. And, I like to write. I like to tell stories. I like to write about characters. I like to build worlds. So, this video right here will be about a particular writing style that I've kind of fell into as a habit. And I brought it up in my video that I dropped before this one. And the way I explain it is that it's like a question and an answer, right? When it comes to writing. And so sometimes, as an author, I would provide you with the answer first. I'll provide you with what happened first, or the finish of what happened. And then what I would do is I would go back and show you how we got to this point. And another thing that I do is I'll write a scene, and then when I go into the next scene, I might start you either before or after that scene and lead into it. So, for example, um, let's say there's a scene where a character is fighting another character, and these characters are fighting with swords, and one character defeats the other. You see it from the person who died. You see it from their perspective. Then the next scene, I'll show you that same two characters, same two people fighting, but this time the POV is from a side character looking on the outside in, who was maybe trying to get there to break up the fight, but got there too late. And so they're getting there, they see the fight, they see a character die, and they're like, "Oh no, I'm too late." And so you kind of get their reaction. And sometimes I do that in writing. And it's a non-linear way of writing, but it's just something I realize over time as I write. And I don't do it in all my stories. But I have done it in a couple of my writings, especially with the Way of the Ascari. I do it a couple of times throughout the book. So, for instance, in chapter 4, called Wounds of Heroes, we have a scene where it starts off with Baku and the war chief and the chieftain of their village kind of just sitting and talking about this event that's about to happen. And then someone breaks in and uh, they interrupt this meeting and they say, "Hey, Uzma and Ru are being attacked by a skull hunter." Now, in chapter 2, we saw the moment where the skull hunter kind of ambushed them, but they hadn't fought yet. So what happens is that the scene breaks up in chapter 4, and we switch POVs back to Uzuma and Ru, and now we're seeing this fight. So we saw Beatrice, kind of get to the point where he's telling them, "Hey, we need help," and now we see the fight. Or we see the moment before they tell Beatrice to go get help. And then you see the fight, and then you get to the climax of that battle, that fight, which leaves with Uzuma, Ru, and their friend Ifa all being like knocked out. And the Skull Hunter, being specifically mad at Uzuma, raises his sword and gets ready to kill him. In that moment, we switch POVs again, which kind of gives you a cliffhanger within the chapter, but it does get resolved. When we go back to Baku, when we see Baku in the forest with the others after receiving the information from Beatrice looking for Uzuma and Ru. And then they hear a moment that you saw earlier in the battle, and then Baku uses his Boko to kind of enhance his vision with a revealing spell, and he sees the moment where the Skull Hunter is getting ready to kill Uzuma, and he chucks a spear, kills the Skull Hunter. And so you get this moment kind of told out of order, but the way I write it within the story makes sense. And I don't know why I particularly lean on this style of writing, but I find it very interesting. Um, it's just kind of something that naturally came to me, and I don't know why I write this way. Um, but it doesn't kind of take you out of the moment. Like you kind of still understand, you still able to flow, but you have those moments where I kind of write it like that. And I think I wrote the chapter like that to introduce the reader, you know, the audience to Baku first, and then to go back to him saving Uzuma and Ru. Because up until that moment, you kind of hear the boys' point of view of Baku. You hear Uzuma's, internal thoughts on what he thinks of being saved by this man, but you don't really see Baku. So this is your first introduction to Baku as a character and his parent, ah, his paternal instincts. That's what I'm trying to say. And so it's very interesting. They call it nonlinear overlapping POV, and it's a very unique way of writing. And also, you have what's called retrospect relevation. And so I don't really know when in my writing I developed this. Maybe it's just a natural thing as I was writing, but I find it very peculiar that I write this way, kind of as a habit of telling a story. Because to me, at the end of the day, whether good or bad, it's all about storytelling. It's all about, as an author and storyteller, am I conveying what I want to convey to the reader? And am I doing that in the best way possible? Because, with the rise of like AI and stuff, and people using AI to help them improve their writing or help them with their grammar and punctuation, a lot of times some things get lost in the sauce. And there are just some things that AI can't replicate. AI can't, replicate nonlinear overlapping POVs. It just can't. So, to put it in layman terms, basically, I don't always open a scene from the beginning to the end. Sometimes I'll start in the middle, which is also a term known as in medias res, and then I'll go back and show you what happened. So it's um it's a unique thing, and like with the way I write my scenes, it comes naturally because I use a form of spatial um, writing instead of writing chronologically. And what that means is that like with most of my scenes that I write, I kind of put you into the space. I kind of deliberately tell you like where the characters are and what's around them and what they can see or or whatever without being too like what is it in without with showing versus telling, you know, without giving you too much exposition. That's what I'm trying to say. Again, like when I do these videos, I do them off the cuff. It's just my thoughts. So sometimes I get tripped over my words because my mind is thinking faster than I can get the words out. But going off on a tangent there, essentially, a lot of my scenes I tend to write more spatially than I do, chronologically. And I think it's just something that comes to me naturally as a writer. Whether that makes me a good writer or a bad writer, I have no idea. That's up to the reader. That's up to the opinion of whoever reads my book. Blackguard, even though Amazon doesn't show all the reviews, it has over 500 reviews. Most of those reviews are positive, but many are negative. And a lot of people don't like the way I write, and that's cool. You know. I've been giving comments like I spend too much describing like the type of food and going into detail what they eat. But when it comes to other things, I'm not giving as much information as I should. There are some continuity errors within the book, and that comes with just improving over time. Maybe one day I will go back, rewrite it, and release like a definitive edition and put in the things I didn't get the chance to put in when I first wrote it. Like maybe get you a little bit more time with the side characters and build them up before the ending of the book. And I try to do these videos without really spoiling anything because I am doing the what you call it, the audiobook, review uh on a weekly basis. So I kind of want you to go along these things as I drop these videos. I don't want to spoil anything if you are following along, but back to writing and the in medias res, that's what it's called. Um, another thing with it is that when I write like this, especially when I'm switching between multiple POVs, you kind of get information that you didn't get before when you're switching POV from one character to another. For instance, I'm just going to go into spoiler territory for those who haven't finished Black Heart Way of the Ascari, but there is um, a big chapter, chapter 23, Village Tainted in Blood. And it was my favorite chapter to write because you can kind of see my creativity at work when it comes to creating these fighting scenes. And you have three different perspectives, right? You have this war chief named Anan, who have the who. Okay, so let me give you some context first before I get into this. The war chief, known as Anan, has been tracking Akachi from his kingdom all the way to this other kingdom. He liaisons with another war chief who is Sandil or Sandile. Also, too, traveling with Anan is the sword acolyte uh, Jokia. She carries four swords with her. And if you go into the Ascari lexicon, acolytes are masters at their given discipline. So, like between blackguards, spearmen, swordmen, and archers, the acolyte is someone who's mastered their given specialty. So, Jokia is traveling with Anan, and they go from their kingdom to another kingdom, trying to stop Akachi. While they're doing that, this random old man who we met earlier comes to the same place, and he's like, "Hey, look, this child washed up on the shores. He looks beat up and decrepit. He looks like he's about to die. I feel weird about him. I think it's something you all should investigate." So when the old man gives a description of the child, Anan and Jokia kind of look at each other like, "Oh, this sounds like Akachi's son." Because up until this point, all they know is that there's a villain named Akachi traveling with his son. They don't know the son's name, but they're like, "Hey, this kid fits the description, so let's go figure out what happened." So when they get to this other village, Anan is already there. I mean, not Anan. Akachi is already there wreaking havoc. So at the end of the chapter before this one, you kind of see a moment where like they're in a cart and they're discussing it, right? And Anand's kind of like, "Look, we have to stop him no matter what." And Sandile is like, "Well, we don't know the nature of his relationship with his child. His child may be innocent." And Anand's like, "That's true, but we have to treat them both as criminal nonetheless." And then they get to a village. Sandile is the first to pop out because it's his kingdom. So he's the first to represent for his squad. And he basically just he takes off, right? Moving at like even though he's not a blackguard, he's moving at a phenomenal speed to the point where when the Nan and Nokia get out the cart or the carriage, he's already gone. They've already lost him. So then when we start off, Village Tainted in Blood, we see that same moment again, but from Anand and Jokia's perspective. And you see, when Sandil takes off, right? From a new perspective. My bad, y'all. It's early in the morning. I ain't had my coffee. You know, whew, I'm a little tired going on these walks, man. It's a long walk, about 30 minutes to patrol this whole building. And so we get to the village. Anan is there. I mean, Sandalake is, he leads them. Boom, we switch perspectives. Now we see it from their perspective, right? Because they're having some dialogue between each other. Sandile, or Sandil, however you want to pronounce it, he fights Kachi, and then at the end of that fight, Kachi ends up like blowing a hole through his skull or something like that. You know, we see that moment from Sandil's perspective, and then we have a scene break, and we switch to Jokia. Jokia's pissed because she's followed Kachi's destruction between two kingdoms, so she feels like it's her duty to bring him down because he killed some of her people, and so we see the moment where Sandil dies from Jokia's perspective, and then she doesn't even hesitate. She goes in a battle, but we can hear Anan talking to her, but she's already in like a rage, lust, or what is it called? I forget what the term is. Is it battle lust or bloodlusted? There you go. So she's already bloodlusted that she just goes right in and starts swinging swords at Akachi, but she can't touch him. He's just too good. And then eventually, she does catch him slipping and she stabs him with all four swords. Then she turns around and looks at Anan like, hey, it's over. I did it. But next thing you know, she feels blades piercing her body. She feels her own weapon stabbing her, in the gut, in the neck, and she dies right there on her knees. And then we have another scene break, and we see it from Anan's perspective. And Anan, the main difference between each of these fights, Sandile, hand-to-hand combat, he tried to fight Akachi with his halo. So Kia, she has swords. She's an acolyte. She lost. And now we have Anan, who is a war chief and a very powerful blackguard. Now he's about to face Akachi. But we see Jokia's death from his perspective. And while she was fighting Anan, while Jokia was fighting Akachi, I'm sorry, y'all, it's early. I'm tired. I no sleep. I'm stumbling. It's all good, though. We're going to get through it. When she's fighting Akachi, when we switch to Anan's perspective, he pulls out this zirconia, and within the world, zirconia can be used to store memories, and then you can send it to somebody, and they'll project that memory later on with Boko. So Anan puts some of his magic into the zirconia, and he records everything that he's seen up until that moment, including the fight with um, Sandil and Jokia, and he sends it to Suja Pit because at this point they have learned that Kachi's next target will be Suja Pit, which is the training ground for the Ascari. So they then we have their fight. So the main reason why I'm bringing this up is that throughout this one chapter we have these three deaths, and you see two of the deaths from different perspectives, and you see the start of the fight from different perspectives. So that's just something I thought was just a fun way, like we to give you that kind of spatial storytelling along with giving you the chronological events of the story. I'm just bringing it up because this is I don't run into this technique often when I'm reading. Some writers do it well. Like I think I read a couple of Brandon Sanderson books where he's done this. You know, um, and sometimes you might have a story where like characters are doing a heist, so you have the same scene from different characters' perspective throughout the book with certain like heist stories and stuff like that. I think I might have heard of Lizard, but I don't often read it that much. You know, so I just think it's something fun to do when I'm writing, and I try to utilize these techniques just to tell a good story and to to give the reader some fun while reading. And sometimes I like to lay clues. Like if I'm switching a POV with the same scene, I might give you a clue from one character's perspective that you couldn't see from another character's perspective. And then as a reader, I want you to be like, oh, that's why this happened. Or, oh, that's how that happened. Or, man, dog, if they would have seen this, then they wouldn't have did this, but they couldn't see it because we just now getting it from this person's perspective. So it's just something fun to do. The nonlinear overlapping POV, the retrospective revelations, and the in medias res, and spatial writing. Just some terms. I don't know if these are the proper terms for it, but it's just something I like to do. And with that being said, that is this video, man. I hope you enjoy going on this walk with me. It ran a little longer than I would have liked it to be. Went on a couple of rants, got distracted a little bit. I was doing a little bit, but I'm a regular dude. I just happen to write books. One day I do hope to be as well renowned as some of my favorites, like Simon R. Green, R.L. Stein, K.A. Applegate. I just recently finished Harry Potter. Love those books. Love the foreshadowing in Harry Potter. There's a lot of spatial storytelling in Harry Potter too. Think about it. Um, who else? Oh, Brandon Sanderson, of course. I love The Way of Kings, but that last one, the one I read, The Wind of Truth or something like that, or Wind and Truth, I hated that one. So I got to get the new one. I forgot what it's called. I haven't got it yet. But if you like these videos, you like going on these walks with your boy, just make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Do all that good stuff. Um, Blackguard, Way of the Ascari, and Prelude to Blackguard Echoes of Defiance are on Amazon right now. You can go cop those, cop my other books. Also, check out the Patreon. I'm dropping everything on the Patreon. It's way cheaper. You can go in there. Now, with the Patreon, I am using some AI audio for some of the audiobooks right now until I can afford to have the audio redubbed. But you can still have some fun with some of the stories on there. Bed exclusively on Patreon. And Bed Season 1 is right now on Amazon. You can go buy it. Um, Make sure you follow your boy. I'm across all social media at Mind the Typos. Facebook, RS Cobb. It's been a good one. I'm about to continue this patrol, and y'all stay up to the next one. Peace.